We work so you can play. MiniWarGaming's The Fate of Fayoom.
Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and this is the final story time for the Fate of Fayoom Tyranid Necron campaign. And by final, I mean I am going to recap what happened in the very last mission, the one that's only available in the vault. So if you have yet to see it, and you don't want me to give you any spoilers, then make sure you go and watch it now. I'll put a link in the description below that goes to mission 6B, which determined the winner of the campaign. So you've been thoroughly warned here. I'm about to give away what happened. If you don't want to know until you've seen it, turn off this video, okay? Okay, so as you saw in mission 6A, unfortunately Knum was not successful in destroying the hive structures. And so what he did is he decided to go for one final gambit and withdraw a lot of his forces from the front lines because his numbers were dwindling. And he knew that if you could retake the shipyards like he already tried to do, that his fleet was actually quite strong. And he knew that he had already put a decisive blow on the Tyranid hive fleet, that the ships that were in orbit sending down more and more reinforcements weren't even it wasn't even a strong portion of the hive fleet, that they needed to reconstitute and repair after that. So he was going for the shipyards. Now thankfully for him, the loyalists were taken care of. The Tyranids had destroyed the loyalists at the shipyard. But what that meant was now the Tyranids were infesting the shipyard. And if he didn't take over the shipyards fast enough, they would destroy it because they're running amok and they're going underground and burrowing and just putting their nests everywhere, and it's just making it completely inoperable if he doesn't get there fast enough. So in the very final mission, he withdraws forces from everywhere so that he can have enough strength. He even manages to capture a couple of the Catan shards and even the Transcendent Catans after much effort, and he brings them in, one in a Tesseract vault and the other one just shackled to its normal, I can't remember what it's called, the other chain thing that it has. And he brings them to that fight to put as much firepower into the Tyranid lines as possible. So when he arrives, he pushes forward and he just starts tearing through the Tyranids. But it's taking him too long to get through. They keep popping up on the ground, and all of a sudden the Gene Stealers and Broodlord and the Broodlord and the Death Leaper both pop out of the forest near where Knum was overseeing the entire battle, and he gets engaged by them and he jumps off where he's on top of this rocky outcropping with all of his huge warrior group, but he leaves that group and he jumps down so he can bellow a challenge to the Death Leaper, and they engage in combat as well. Actually, the Death Leaper actually fails to get to him, and the Broodlord engages him in combat with all these Gene Stealers, and he uses Mind Shackle Scarabs, and the Broodlord starts scratching himself in the skull, and then he strikes him down, and then with the help of another Catan shard, he just wipes out all the Gene Stealers, all the Lictors, the Death Leaper goes down, everybody gets destroyed from that group. But meanwhile, while he's busy taking care of the Broodlord and the Death Leaper, his forces are lacking leadership necessary to punch through the Tyranid lines. In fact, there's not just one Hive Tyrant there, there's two Hive Tyrants who are just doing this huge synapse area and really goading all of the Tyranids on, giving them all the information they need to get through all the kinks of the Necron armor and to just punch through their metal skulls, and doing just enough damage to hold them off just long enough. The Tesseract Vault, the very first one they brought in, crumbles from a Hierophant and Hero Duel's combined might. Luckily, there's another one that comes back in from the strategic reserves later on and continues contributing to that. But the loss of the Tesseract Vault was a big hit on the Necron forces. The other Transcendent Catan is sliding around, putting down destroyer hits everywhere, and even manages to eventually take out the two Hive Tyrants. And unfortunately, the Hive fleet was already ready to bellow force a couple more Hive Tyrants, but in the meanwhile managed to scatter more of the Gaunts, kill the rest of the Carnifexes, and the Doomsides come in, they start to just scatter everything as well. And in the end, the Necrons are victorious and coming through and punching and clearing out the Tyranids, but it's too late. They took too long to do it, and they find their shipyard in shambles, and it'll take too long to repair it before all the Tyranid forces are finally getting through now that they pulled the majority of their forces away from the front lines. The Tomb World is overrun. The Tyranid Hive Fleet has won. But perhaps there will be more in the future for Knum, as we don't know what happens to him, and he is rather near the shipyards, and maybe there's a single ship that he might be able to escape in, and hopefully the Hive Fleet will ignore him. But no one will know, because this is the end of the fate of Fayoum as the Tomb World falls into complete disarray and the Hive Fleet Charon strips every last molecule of biomass off of Fayoum. And the native species there, along with everything else, are completely destroyed just to feed the Hive Fleet Charon. And it's able to reconstitute its fleets and get enough biomass to start to build up and be even more of a threat to the galaxy. Thus ends the fate of Fayoum. Thank you very much for watching. We are going to be having an after thing discussion. You can see a link for that in the video description below as well, where Steve and I talk about the whole thing. And we'd love your feedback on it, of course, so make sure you go and watch that and leave a comment there. It's been very enjoyable. I hope that you enjoyed this. This is Matthew from MiniWarGaming. Happy wargaming.